feels like a betrayal. It feels like my country doesn't love me and appreciate my body as a woman. I can't even chant because I can't say anything. It hurts.
This is the first step in building a culture of life, and we want to support families, people who are in crisis pregnancies, especially low-income women and women in rural areas.
The decision to overturn Roe versus Wade broke with what the majority of Americans believe when it comes to a woman's right to choose. A Pew poll found from March that nearly 3/4 of adults believe the decision about having an abortion should belong solely, imagine this to be a little shocking, solely to that of a pregnant woman. Today, the will of most Americans was overturned by a court that got its conservative majority from 2 Republican presidents who came to office after losing the popular vote. Joining me now is Amy Howe, co-founder of SCOTUS Blog, Megan Hatcher-Mays, director of democracy policy for Indivisible, and Mark Joseph Stern, senior writer for Slate, focusing on courts and the law. Megan, what is your reaction on today's ruling?
This is a hard day, I think, for everybody who cares about abortion or who has people in their lives who have had abortions, who might need an abortion one day. It's one thing to know this was coming, because we all did. We saw the leaked draft from a month ago, and effectively this decision is the same. The outcome is effectively the same. But it's another thing to really have it issued, have it say on Supreme Court letterhead, basically, that there are people in this country who don't deserve equal rights under the Constitution. And that's what today's decision did. It puts women and people who can get pregnant at grievous risk. It especially, as folks have said, impacts low-income women who can't travel to states where abortion is still legal. And the worst part is that this is not the end. This may be a culmination of a 50-year right-wing project to overturn Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, but it's not the end of the conservative project to ban abortion nationwide. And then once they've done that, they're going to start coming for the rest of our constitutional rights as well, including access to contraception and private sexual relationships that we might want to have, gay marriage, interracial marriage. All of that is at stake. And this Supreme Court is dragging us unwillingly back to the 1800s down a very, very dark path. It's a very bad day for this country.
Mark, Amy basically alluded to what Justice Thomas said today, saying that this was the beginning of dismantling other people's rights. We are talking about gay marriage. We're talking about contraception. What are you hearing, and what is your response to this?
Well, I think that the dissenters put it very well in their opinion today, comparing this decision to someone taking a single block out of a Jenga tower, watching it about to topple and say, oh, that'll never fall over. The court has repudiated the constitutional basis for so many rights that are favored by progressives. The right to contraception, the right not to be forcibly sterilized, the right to same-sex marriage. All of those rights are rooted in this idea that the Constitution protects certain aspects of liberty that are fundamental to dignity and autonomy, even if they weren't necessarily protected when the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. Again, the majority opinion in this case says that that entire doctrine is hokum and fully tosses it out the window. So it is very difficult for me to take seriously its assurances that, oh, this decision won't affect any other precedents. In fact, the court has really kind of given conservative politicians and advocates a playbook for eventually overruling all of these other rights. And what I'm hearing is that a lot of red state attorneys general and politicians are already thinking about how they can make this same play that they did to topple abortion rights to topple things like gay rights and contraception.
Amy, how are you feeling listening to this hearing?
I mean, today's decision was a bombshell, really. It's something that I think people who have been covering the court for some time sort of saw the roads going in that direction. And then certainly with the confirmation of 3 justices appointed by the former president, Donald Trump, who promised to appoint justices who would overrule Roe and Casey. And then with the draft opinion that was leaked in early May, the court said it wasn't a final decision, but we knew at the time that that decision meant that there were 5 votes to overrule Roe and Casey. And we saw that today. I guess it's one thing to even to expect something to happen, but then to actually see it happen is really remarkable.
So I want to follow up, Amy, on that question of what did you make of the fact that Justice Roberts wasn't completely aligned with the conservative judges? What can we read into that?
That is, he has been aligned in some of the other major cases so far this term. Yesterday's decision involving gun rights, a major decision involving religion last week. And so there is undoubtedly this 6-3 conservative majority on the court. It wasn't a surprise at all that the Chief Justice penned this separate opinion. He is very conservative, but he's an institutionalist. And we saw him raise this line of argument at the oral argument in December, saying effectively, we don't have to formally overrule Roe and Casey right now, but we can still uphold the Mississippi law. There didn't seem to be any other support for that line of thinking at the oral argument in December. And we saw today that none of the other conservative justices bought into it. The Chief Justice issued this concurring opinion all by himself.
So one of the questions I have for you, Megan, is that we are starting to hear rumblings from what needs to get done. We heard today from the President of the United States and said that the only way that we're able to overturn this decision by the Supreme Court is by codifying Roe versus Wade. That means we are talking about the midterm elections. What do groups need to do right now? What do the American people need to do right now if you believe that that is the pathway to ensure that women have equal access to their health and agency over their bodies?
Well, the president was right when he said that Roe is on the ballot. Right now, I think that this Congress has done everything it can do to codify Roe at the federal level. It's been hung up in the Senate because we've got a couple of fake Democrats who don't want to do what we need to do to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, which would codify Roe. That would be Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, don't want to get rid of the filibuster to pass critical pieces of legislation that would make our country better. So if that bothers you, make sure your voter registration is up to date and that you're voting for good Democrats. This is not a vote blue no matter who situation. It really does matter who. We should be voting for Democrats who will fight for the things that we need. And what we need is to codify Roe at the federal level. But we can't just do that and move on because this court, the Supreme Court, is hostile to abortion rights. Any bill that passes that protects women, protects pregnant people, or in any way tries to make life more equitable for marginalized people, this court will attack. Every single opportunity they get, they have taken it. So they also must pass the Judiciary Act. We have got to add seats to the Supreme Court because these 6 conservatives are completely untethered from reality. Just yesterday, they said we need more guns on the streets, guns everywhere. States can't be trusted to regulate guns. And then today they said states must regulate the bodily autonomy of women in their state. This is unhinged. This is possibly the most deranged conservative majority in the history of this court. So Democrats must do something about the court also. You cannot just pass legislation. You have to do something to protect the legislation that you pass. And that means adding seats to the Supreme Court and undermining the power that these 6 unelected justices have over our lives.
So, Mark, I think Pelosi had a little bit to say about what we're hearing right now about this idea that what the Supreme Court seems to be doing is speaking on 2 sides of its mouth, saying that the state can do certain things but not other things when it comes to life-saving procedures, whether we're talking about who can own a gun and who's allowed to give birth. Take a listen.
It's such a contradiction. Yesterday, they say the states cannot make laws governing the constitutional right to bear arms. And today, they're saying the exact reverse, that the states can overturn a constitutional right for 50 years, a constitutional right for a woman having the right to choose. The hypocrisy is raging, but the harm is endless. What this means to women is such an insult.
Mark, what is your reaction to that?
Well, I think she put it quite well, and it's impossible to ignore the hypocrisy of the conservative majority between yesterday and today. Today, the court praises itself as a great defender of democracy. It says, oh, we're so wonderful. We're returning this issue to the people where it belongs. They and their elected representatives can sort it out. It's not for us to decide. Yesterday, they said, actually, the people cannot decide on matters of gun regulation, that is not a topic that is a legitimate subject of legislation by the elected representatives. Instead, it is unelected judges who will decide when and how individuals can carry guns. Deploying what I consider to be an extremely weak and dilettantish approach to historical analysis in order to find this so-called right to self-defense that allegedly encompasses a right to carry arms in public, which was broadly banned and restricted when the Second Amendment was ratified and applied to the states. So I think it's very clear that this conservative court has rights that it favors and rights that it doesn't. It wants to withdraw those rights that it favors from the democratic process and say, we simply have no control over them as American citizens, and rights that it disfavors, it's happy to toss to the sharks and say, have at it, Republican legislatures. You can do whatever you want.